Sometimes, the strongest act of courage isn't fighting buckets walking away. This is the story of a quiet man, pushed too far under the brightest lights of television, who chose dignity over applause. What followed was heartbreak, backlash, and finally, a redemption that touched millions around the world. If stories of strength, healing, and honesty move you, stay with us until the end, and consider subscribing for more. It was meant to be a celebration, the kind of moment every actor dreams of. Us sit down with the most famous talk show host in America. The studio was buzzing, the audience eager, cameras rolling live to millions at home. The guest that day was Keanu Reeves, known not for loud headlines but for his quiet humility, his gentle presence, and his deep personal pain. He had lost loved ones, carried grief silently, and yet kept offering kindness wherever he went. At first, everything seemed normal. Questions about his childhood, his movies, even his love of motorcycles. The audience smiled as Keanu answered with his usual soft-spoken honesty. But then, the tone shifted. The host leaned forward, her words sharper than before. She questioned his isolation, his loneliness, even whether his kindness was real or just an act. Then she asked what millions had whispered, "Are you broken?" The air in the room grew heavy. The audience didn't laugh this time. Keanu's smile faded. His voice, usually calm, grew firm. "I think we should talk about something else." But the host pressed harder. In that moment, Keanu did something no one had ever done on that stage. He stood up, he gently removed his microphone, and without anger, without spectacle, he walked away. Live, on air, the crowd gasped. Social media exploded. Within minutes, headlines screamed, "Career suicide." After all, no one walks out on Oprah, not Tom Cruise, not Beyoncé. But Keanu had, and Hollywood trembled. The days that followed were not kind. Every news outlet, from gossip sites to respected networks, covered the walkout. The host's team called it unexpected and disappointing. Commentators labeled him arrogant. Late-night comedians made him the punchline of their jokes. Even his upcoming movie release was delayed, with sponsors quietly stepping back. For many, this would have been the end. A single moment destroying decades of work. Hollywood is quick to turn its back, and crueler still when someone refuses to play by its rules. But here is where Keanu showed something rare. He said nothing. No interviews, no carefully written apology, no angry tweets. He simply disappeared from the noise. Instead, he showed up in quiet places, at a children's hospital, reading books to kids whose laughter mattered more than ratings, at a food bank in Detroit, helping hand out warm meals, always without cameras, always without press. People who saw him shared their stories, not because he asked, but because kindness leaves its own trail. And something strange began to happen. While the headlines raged, the people outside Hollywood saw him differently. Old videos resurfaced Keanu giving up his subway seat to a stranger, or offering a gentle word to a grieving fan. Quotes of his humility spread online. "He's the only real one in Hollywood," some wrote. Then, a whisper turned into a roar. An anonymous insider revealed that Keanu had one request before that interview, not to discuss his deepest personal pain. That request had been ignored. Suddenly, the story was no longer about arrogance. It was about boundaries, about a man who had carried too much and refused to let his suffering become entertainment. The world began to shift. Months passed. Hollywood waited for him to return, expecting a desperate comeback or a public apology. But Keanu did neither. He stayed quiet, moving through life the way he always had, locked away from red carpets, close to ordinary people. And then, one evening, a small clip surfaced. It wasn't from a movie premiere. It wasn't from a press conference. It was from a quiet charity gala in Brazil. A shaky phone video showed Keanu smiling as he lifted a child onto his shoulders. The child's laughter filled the room, and Keanu's face lit up with a joy that no performance could fake. The video went viral, not because it was polished, but because it was real. People wrote, "This is who he truly is." For the first time since the walkout, the world began to see, not scandal, but sincerity. Then came the project no one expected. Netflix announced a new series created and led by Keanu, built on themes of solitude, strength, and quiet rebellion. It wasn't just another action role. It was a reflection of his own journey. Critics called it bold, audiences called it healing, fans devoured it. When he finally returned to late-night television, the host asked gently about that day on Oprah's stage. Keanu didn't rant. He didn't accuse. He simply smiled faintly and said, Sometimes walking away is the only way to stay true to yourself. The world listened, and for once, the world understood. Even the host he had walked out on reached out months later. Not with cameras, but with compassion. They met privately, away from lights and microphones. A single photo leaked to people, smiling over tea. Not rivals, but humans reconciling. In time, the host herself spoke. He reminded me that even those in pain have the right to set boundaries. I respect that. Keanu never confirmed the story. He didn't need to. The lesson had already been written, not in press releases or staged apologies, but in actions, quiet and kind. What began as a moment of supposed career suicide became something far more powerful. Keanu's choice to walk away showed millions that dignity is greater than applause, that silence can be louder than words, and that even in Hollywood, a world built on performed truth still matters. And maybe that's why people love him even more today, not because he is perfect, but because he is human, because he teaches us something doctors, teachers, and elders have always known. Healing starts when we honor our pain and set gentle boundaries around it. If this story touched your heart, let us know where in the world you're listening from. Subscribe for more stories of courage, kindness, and healing. And remember, sometimes walking away is the bravest step of all.